throughout Utah if they face substantial harm due to the coronavirus crisis. So if this is something you think you may be eligible for, please feel free to contact directly the Small Business Administration, SBA. You can reach them on the internet, and again through our website, you can reach them and can potentially apply for and qualify for this loan. An unusual part of this loan was added by the legislation this last week, and that is there's an emergency provision, which is if you need $10,000 on an emergency basis, it will be given as a grant, not just as a loan, but as a grant. And so this is money that's available to you if you qualify. So no harm in seeking that $10,000 grant money as an emergency economic injury disaster loan program. The second program, which is probably you heard more about, and a lot of money was put behind this, is known as the Personal Paycheck Program. The Personal Paycheck Program. And, I may have that wrong. It may be Personnel Paycheck Program, but either way, it's PPP. And this is a program that says if your business has been substantially affected by COVID-19, that you're able to get a loan that will be turned into a forgiven loan or a grant if you meet certain conditions. Conditions are these. First of all, you have to have less than 500 employees. You must be a business or a not-for-profit. You can be a worker in the gig economy, a sole proprietorship, an individual. Any of the above can apply for a loan that turns into a grant under this program. The amount that you can receive is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. And they're going to look at your payroll in the past, not your payroll right now if you've let people go, but they're going to look at your payroll over the last year and see what the average monthly payroll was. The amount you can get is 2.5 times that. It will be forgiven if you use those funds to do a certain number of qualified things, which is 1, paying your people, their payroll, 2, paying rent, 3, paying interest on your mortgage, 4, paying utilities. You also must maintain your same number of full-time equivalent employees. And if you've already let people go, that means you'd be incentivized to hire them back, put them on your payroll, and use these funds from the PPP program to pay them and pay your rent and so forth. If you do that, you will have the loan forgiven, or most of the loan forgiven, at the end of the period. So that's obviously of real interest to businesses that really got hit hard by the downturn, and that want to keep a close relationship with employees. You can rehire them, keep them on your payroll, and pay them through this loan, which becomes a grant. Now, again, how do you apply for these? For the EIDL, the Emergency Injury Disaster Loan, you go directly to the SBA. For the Paycheck Program, that's a loan which you would obtain by going to your bank or credit union, assuming it's one that's approved by the Small Business Administration, the SBA. And those banks are going to be getting regulations telling them how to make these loans. Those regulations should be in place by this Friday. So they may not be ready yet to take on your request. But that takes me to the topic that I feel is most important of all this call. Probably the most important is this, which is time is of the essence. If you need funding and these programs are attractive to you and you want to take advantage of them, I would note that the people that get in early are the people who are going to get funding. And those that wait and come in late may find the funds are gone. That's just the challenge with government programs. When the funding is gone, it's gone. And there will be a real rush to get funding under either one of those loan or grant programs. So if you're interested in this, why you ought to move quickly to take advantage of it. Let me notice something else, which is relevant to many of you, which is some of you will have laid people off and you have decided not to take advantage of either of these programs, these loan programs. Unemployment insurance, as part of the law passed a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, unemployment insurance has been increased substantially. So whereas it would normally be about $350 a week an unemployed person would receive, that number is being increased by $600 a week. So Utah would be getting about $950 a week while they're unemployed, and that's over 4 months. So the funding has been put in place for a 4-month period. So that's going to be pretty attractive to people who are out of work, to get their unemployment through the state, but funded by the federal government. I'll also note that there are special programs for those in agriculture. And so if you have members that are farmers or ranchers or in agriculture, the website they can go to is called farmer.gov, farmer.gov, to get specific information related to farmers. I'd also note that for those of you in St. George, the St. George Chamber can provide information to you, because St. George is providing loans of $20,000 maximum at 0% and don't have to be paid back for 5 years. So again, this is a really aggressive program to keep St. George businesses up and active and alive and well during these very difficult times. So those are the government programs that are relevant, and hopefully those are of help to you. If you have any questions or concerns, pass them along to us, again, to our team in Salt Lake City, our offices in St. George or elsewhere in the state, and also go to our website, romney.senate.gov. And then I'm going to end with just a couple of pieces of business advice, unsolicited, but at one point I was in a similar situation, not as severe as we're in now, but a similar situation. I was asked to lead a company of about 1,000 employees at a time we were 2 weeks away from bankruptcy. And there were a few lessons that I learned at that time that I'm going to pass along. One is to look at all the people you owe money to, whether it's the banks or suppliers and so forth, and say, who of all those can help me out during these tough times? Where can I stretch payments? Where can I get forgiveness? But talking to the people you owe money to and keeping them informed with exactly your circumstances may well help you weather a difficult storm. The other side of that is also to say, who are people you can help? As an enterprise yourself, there are perhaps customers of yours where you can give some forbearance and allow them to be able to survive, and that will create a relationship which will be very, very strong in the future. I'd also note that this is a time for businesses to really focus on what is absolutely key to their future, and then to organize their team of people. That is, if there's more than one person, but to organize people to take on each one of those critical tasks in a very effective and clearly defined way. So if everybody's doing everything, why nothing gets done? But if people are assigned in task forces to take on the major tasks you're concerned about, with someone given responsibility for leading that task force, you're far more likely to be successful getting it done. And then I'll mention one more thing, and that is that it is useful, I believe, in the case of many of our enterprises, to now rethink how we're going to design our products going forward. Because in many businesses, after COVID-19 has come and gone, we're going to ask ourselves, okay, what should our product look like in the future? That's probably particularly true for retailers and publishers and advertisers, and may well be true in agriculture, construction. I mean, my guess is people are going to want to have home offices when they're thinking about designing a home. So a lot of things are going to change. And this is a good time to be thinking about those things, because heaven knows you got time on your hands if your business is barely crawling along. So with that, Mandy, if you have any questions that have come in, I'm happy to respond to them.
I do. We have a couple of questions. The first one is about unemployment extension. Can you speak to the time extension and to who's covered under the employment insurance program?
Yeah, unemployment insurance will be provided not just for people who've been working in a major enterprise, but also people in the gig economy, sole proprietors, and so forth. So it's broadly applicable, and it will last at this new higher level for at least 4 months. So the current legislation provides federal funding of $600 per person in addition per week for the next 4 months.
Great. Our next question is, what kind of help is there for companies with over 500 employees?
For large companies, there is a separate program, and about $450 billion was put aside for this program, which has two parts. About 50 billion of it was given to the Treasury, where the federal Treasury itself, will make loans to enterprises that are critical to our national defense, that are critical to our infrastructure, such as airlines, and those loans will be worked out on a case-by-case basis by the Treasury. The other roughly 450 billion will be given to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve is able to leverage that, meaning they could loan more than they've actually taken in. They can leverage it 10 to 1. So it's basically $4 trillion will go into the economy to give loans to enterprises of all kinds that are impacted by the COVID virus, to give loans. These loans will be offered at market rates, but they're going to be offered by banks. So a company would go to their bank and be able to obtain a loan. It's going to be guaranteed or funded by the Federal Reserve. And this is being made available to businesses of medium scale or larger all throughout the economy. So entities that are 500 employees or larger are able to obtain this financing to basically keep the doors open and hopefully keep employees on payroll.
Great. Last question, do you expect that there will be phase 4 legislation that follows up with this?
That's a tough question. Two parts to answer that question correctly. One part is whether the COVID virus is going to continue beyond just the next couple of weeks. And the answer to that, I think, is pretty definitely yes. I'm no doctor that studies infectious diseases, but those that are suggest that this is going to go on for some time, a matter of weeks, months, not years, but weeks and maybe months. And so that being the case, there's going to be need for ongoing support for our employees that are laid off, families that are in distress, as well as businesses that are having a hard time keeping their doors open or keeping in business. So one, there'll be a need. Number two is, will Congress act? And that's a little harder to know. We acted very quickly in our government this last time around, in part because it was an emergency and people recognized that doors are being shut, people were being laid off, people couldn't get groceries, they had no money, and we had to act as quickly as we could. And so it got done pretty quickly. But now that we have time, now that that politicians have time to load up bills with all their favorite pet projects and bridges to nowhere, that could really slow things down and potentially have people vote no. So you probably saw this last time, the Senate voted unanimously to provide this funding. The House voted on a voice vote, so basically almost unanimously. And the next time around, it's going to be harder. So I would not count on the next round. I think there will be one, but I don't know how generous it'll be. I don't know what the parameters will be. And that's one of the things I'm working on right now. We are, as you know, Congress is not in session, but we're all working. And we're working from our respective homes, working telephonically with one another and looking at what the next piece of legislation might look like. My own view is that we ought to narrowly focus this legislation on helping American families in distress, as well as keeping business doors open and not having businesses have to file for bankruptcy. So that's a quick response to a difficult question to answer.
And one more question, actually. Can you speak to the directives and regulations that will be coming to lenders and what that time frame looks like?
We expect that lenders are going to be getting information on the personal payroll protection program. They're going to get those by this coming Friday. That's according to the Secretary of the Treasury. The Small Business Administration will get the parameters of these loans out by Friday. But there's no harm, by the way, in gathering information and applying even now. But that's going to come out according to the Treasury Secretary on Friday. As to the large business loans for those with substantial employment over 500, those I just go to my bank right now. In both cases, look, if I were in a business that's in distress that needs emergency help, I'd be going to my lender right now and saying, what do you know? Give me the particulars you're familiar with. How can I make sure I'm first in line when your doors open after you get the regs in place? So that should also be in place, I hope, by the end of the week.
Great. Well, I know you have another meeting to get to, so thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And,
thank you, Mandy. Look, I just want to say thanks to all of you for the work you're doing. I recognize these are tough times, but we're a pioneer people, We've gone through tough times before. This is an unusual time. We'll make it through this. I know when you're in the middle of it, you wonder whether that's going to happen, but I'm convinced it will. I'm convinced that there are different ways of approaching it. I think Utah's doing a good job at this stage. And I'm going to work with the governor and his team to see if we can't apply some of the lessons from South Korea, from Taiwan, Germany, even China, that have basically been able to push back the disease. Germany, not so much yet, but the others have. Not just slow it down, but stop it. And that's what I'm hoping we can see in Utah. So all the best to you. We're going to get there. Appreciate what you're doing, and keep in touch with us if the things you need us to do or input you have on legislation coming forward. All the best.
Thanks, Senator. And thanks to everyone for joining us. If you have questions or would like further clarification, you can visit our website. That is romney.senate.gov/smallbizhelp. Again, romney.senate.gov/smallbizhelp. Or you can reach out to our state director, Adam Gardner. His email is adam_GARDINER@romney.senate.gov. You can also reach out to the regional director, Scott Albrecht, and his email is SCOTT_ALB as in boy, RECHT @romney.senate.gov. And again, we thank you for joining us and wish you all the best.